Silencer Central. Folks, if you want to learn something new right alongside me, check it out at silencercentral.com. I've never put a suppressor on any of my weapons, but I'm going to start now, and I'm using Silencer Central to help get me started because they walk you through the whole process, to include you can ship the rifle to them, they'll thread it, they'll put it on, and they will ship it back, and you can make payments on the whole thing while you wait for all the licensing to get approved, which they take care of for you. It's a great process, and it's a great company, American manufacturer, right there in South Dakota, and we are really excited to be partnering with them. So check it out at silencercentral.com or give them a call at 888-781-8778 and let them know that you heard it on the Western Huntsman. Hoffman Boots is my go-to boot. I love the Explorers in the 8-inch, and they've got the Vibram sole, totally waterproof, no break-in period. They just glue your feet to the mountain. You can't ask for more out of a boot, and you don't have to break the bank to get a pair. So check it out at hoffmanboots.com. Again, another American company. Local North Idaho friend of mine who runs this company decided to make some great hunting boots for all people that are serious about getting into the backcountry to chase elk and deer and bear and everything else out there. So check it out at hoffmanboots.com. Use promo code all caps lock Huntsman10 at checkout to save you 10%. There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Western Huntsman Podcast. This is Jim Huntsman, your host, coming at you from the Broken Tine studio and brought to you by Eastman's Hunting Journals. Guys, thanks for joining us. This is we're kind of going into the spring season now. We've got turkey coming up, we've got spring bear coming up, and some various other things. A lot of you shed hunters out there, I'll bet you're getting pretty busy. So whenever we get like that, this show kind of we don't have like seasons. You know, a lot of podcasts have different seasons where they'll stop and then it'll be season 2 and season 3. This is just kind of ongoing season 1 from for the last 5 years or so, and I'll probably keep it that way. But seasonally speaking, I generally like to do. You guys know that if you've listened to this show, I'm not your average gear junkie. I'm not one of those gear junkie types. I don't get really excited about certain new gadgets coming out and new gizmos that are supposedly going to make you a better hunter. The things I do get hung up on and the things I get excited about are some critical pieces of gear, and one of those is your boots. If you go into the field now, every time I say this, I'll have somebody comment, well, I can go elk hunting in a pair of Walmart tennis shoes. Yeah, you can. You certainly can if you want to. You could be that guy. But if you want to go into the field and you want to spend a lot of time and you want to be able to go more miles without your feet coming apart on you, because if they get blistered up, they come apart, you've got the wrong boots, you've got the wrong, whatever gear on your feet, it's going to make for a very rough day for you. And so I'm just like over explaining what I do in the spring, but we kick off school of September. We kick off a couple of different series. We're going to start talking about spring bear hunting for those of you that want to spot and stalk. And also we've got some baiting episodes coming up. But what we're going to talk about a lot in the spring is gear. And I like to bring on people that know a lot about gear, so you're not hearing it from me. But again, if you're no stranger to this show, you've known that darn near from the beginning of the Western Huntsman Podcast, we have been huge fans and partnered with Hoffman Boots. and Hoffman boots are the only boot I've been using for almost a decade now. I've had exclusively exclusively Hoffman Explorers, and I really like my Hoffman Explorers, and it's been my go-to boot. And I've gone through in all that time. I think I'm on my third set of Hoffmans, and the only reason I'm on my third set of Hoffmans is because one of those pair burned down in my truck fire from a couple of years ago, and so it's not like you wear them out super quick. But anyway, we'll get into all that. But guys, he's a return guest. He is one of the owners of Hoffman Boots. He's a great guy. I really enjoy every time I get together with Jim Hoffman, and we've gone hunting together. We just saw each other down at Salt Lake at the expo. So welcome back, Jim Hoffman of Hoffman Boots. Jim, great to have you on the show, brother. I appreciate you joining me.
Jim. Yeah, thank you. Heck, always good to be back with you.
It's always easy. It's always easy because I remember your name because
there you go. There you go. But
yeah, so give everybody like a real quick snapshot of who you are and what you do for Hoffman Boots, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah. So again, my name is Jim Hoffman. Little history on Hoffman Boots. My dad started the business back in 1973. Him and his two brothers. At that time, it was basically building a lot of lineman boots and logging boots, and that was our niche of the boot world, was building those types of boots. And my brother and I both worked in the company for several years, starting in the 80s and all the way up to the 90s. And at the end of that period, around 2000, my dad and his two brothers decided it was time they were going to retire. And so my brother, myself, and my sister ended up buying the business from them. And at that time, we still have about 16 other employees that we employ at Hoffman Boots. At that period of time, it was when, a few years under our belt, I've never been a logger and I've never been a lineman. I love the guys. They're our bread and butter of our business, but I've always been a hunter. And so was my brother. And so at that point, it was like, we really wanted to add a third aspect to our business and something that we both have a passion for. And that was the hunting industry and hunting boots. And so that kind of led me into a journey of, interviewing, sampling, going to Italy and finding several different boot manufacturers that manufactured, excellent products, but trying to narrow it down to the ones that really fit our environments, mainly, not going to say just the Northwest, but mountainous environments where guys are up and down hills a lot, and just trying to find a product that we were really passionate about, that we knew we would be successful with. So that's kind of where the hunting part of it grew from, was just trying to find something that we felt would work for the average hunter guys, and that's kind of where we took off at. We did find a company in Europe, or in Italy, I'm sorry, that third generation family. All they've done since 1963 is built hunting boots, so they were very familiar with the hunting industry. And great family to work with, really knew their stuff, and it was just a natural fit for our company. Very close to ours. We go back 4 generations as far as shoe repairing goes. They go back 3 generations, and so it just felt like we were almost made for each other. The fit was there. They were excited to work with us. They were excited to get into the U.S. market, and yeah, that's kind of where we started at.
Yeah, and that's I remember you were explaining that last time, that I don't remember if it was like the sole or the whole boot or whatever comes from Italy. And because I'm super ignorant when it comes to the whole manufacturing process, right?
Yeah.
But all I knew is the way I was introduced to Hoffman Boots was long before the podcast, right? I was talking to somebody, and I'm like, man, I need a new pair of hunting boots. I keep buying these expensive boots and they're falling apart on me. And this guy says, "Oh, get the ones that are made in Idaho. They're the company that's right here in Idaho, North Idaho." Yeah. And I'm like, "Oh, what kind of boot is that?" And he's like, "I don't know. I don't remember. But I'll get back to you." And no kidding, 2 weeks later, he called this guy I worked with, comes into my office and he's like, "Hey, that boot company is called Hoffman Boots, and they're based out of Kellogg, Idaho." And so yeah, that I got me a pair of Hoffman. I think it was like the first version. I think I don't even know if it's the same version of Explorer now, but it was like the first version.
Yeah,
And
that's still been our bread and butter pieces, the Explorer. It's just a great
yeah,
boot, as you'll know. And you know, there's just certain aspects of that boot that we really focused on. So many European boots, they really want to come tight in the toe box. They want to narrow that toe box up. And I'm a blog junkie. I love to read blogs and read what people like about boots, what they dislike about boots, problems they've had. And that's kind of where we went about developing these boots was, okay, what do we need to do that's a little bit different that guys are having issues with? And the first thing we really focused on was that toe box of the boot, making that toe box a little bit wider. And then not shying away from materials that are saving a buck or two here. We went with Sympatec waterproof booties, a German company that's been making waterproof booties for 70, 80 years now. But top of the game type of liners, cost more, yes, but are they worth it? Heck yeah. You don't want wet feet out there. Using Vibram components in our boots, using amphibious leathers, the top of the line leather we can find to put in these boots. So there's a lot of aspects that went into making these boots. And yeah, it's just been really fun to watch guys when they try them on and, feel that difference. It's like, yeah, see, that's what we're talking about, so.
yeah. Yeah, and interestingly, you say that, with the expensive, less expensive, more expensive kind of materials and stuff. I had I don't remember what pair of boot I bought. This was years ago, and I'm getting old, Jim, so
Yeah.
bear with me, but it was like a $500 pair of boots, and they did great the first through September, and I put a lot of miles. I put a lot of miles on my boots every year. And so you expect to get a few seasons out of these higher end boots, when you buy a pair of boots. They did great through September, and then I went on this mule deer hunt, and I noticed that like I started getting some cracking kind of towards the front of the boot. And then all of a sudden, end of October, going into November, whitetail season, I started noticing like they weren't waterproof anymore. And it like the front part of my feet were getting wet. And anyway, I do remember the name, but I'm not gonna blow them up on this. But the point is they were way more expensive than what you can get a Hoffman Explorer for. And so it's interesting you say that, because the Hoffman Explorers, when you compare them to some of these other brands that everybody talks about, they all know this brand, that brand, or whatever. They're not as expensive, but they outperform them in my experience. And so now I've got these Hoffmans that like that first pair, I flat wore the sole off of those things, and if I would have resold them, they could have kept going.
Yeah.
But I got several seasons out of them. The second pair that ended up burning in the fire on the truck fire,
I remember that.
I had two very painful things that came out of that truck fire, and one was my pistol, and one was my Hoffman boots that burned down because I did not have a backup pair at the time either. And I remember you let me come and meet you at your place, and I got another pair for you in an emergency there. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is, longevity wise, waterproofing wise, comfort wise, I just you don't get any more bang for your buck than from what I've found with this Hoffman boot. And it's one of those things that it surprises me that more people in the hunting space aren't aware of the Hoffman boot.
Yeah.
And they're just still running around with these overpriced ones that fall apart after a season.
Yeah. Well, I'll touch on that real quick. So probably a little fault of our own. I kind of definitely got my dad's bloodlines in me, where he was always a word of mouth guy. We didn't advertise. I don't have billboards all over. You're not going to see me in magazines all over. Our growth of our company has always been word of mouth. And it's just, I always call it controlled growth. You get a guy that's happy with your product. He tells his buddy, he gets a pair, he tells his buddy, and it works. I mean, that's how we grew our logging business. That's how we grew our lineman business, and our hunting business doubles about every year, since we've introduced these. So it's working. But would it be better if I, advertised a lot more or put a lot more billboards up? Yes, but that stuff's not cheap either. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of cost involved with that. And that's where you see these other guys adding on an extra $100 a pair to cover a lot of expenses that are out there. I mean, there's stuff that, I mean, advertising's flooded in magazines and things like that. You'll see other brands, and it just adds costs to the product. Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
great, everything, but you're going to pay an extra $100 for those. So that's kind of the pricing part of it, and that's kind of where we're restricted on that a bit as far as the advertising goes, and that's what keeps our costs down a bit. And as far as soles go, yeah, our soles wear really well. But one thing we do that a lot of companies don't do, we'll resole your boots right in our shop. So we like to use what's called our claw lug sole on that. You can get your boots resoled for $90 a pair, and you're good to go again. And it's a great sole. So that's something
Yeah.
we do offer that a lot of companies don't, is just being able to resole your boots. So
Well, that's a huge thing because that's exactly what happened. I just put so many miles on it, the sole was gone. When I was when I was in the Marines, and I always feel like I'm such a grandpa when I say back in the Marines. When I bring it up on the podcast, that's what I think about. But we had these desert jungle boots, that we'd wear. And I remember, like in Iraq, I'd worn the sole down to the point where it was like if I wrapped the bottom in duct tape, that would be thicker than what was left on the sole.
yeah,
And literally, that's what when we came out of Iraq, a lot of us were like that. There was nothing on the bottom of our boots, right?
right,
And so I always think that I could take them further than I really need to. But with the Hoffman boots, when I say the sole wore out, what had happened is just that real chunky, grippy kind of bottom part of that sole had worn out. So I noticed I was slipping and falling a little bit more on the mountain. And when you get a brand new pair of these Explorers, man, I feel like your feet are just glued to the mountain. I can go up and down, however wet, and I just don't slip and fall as like when I go with somebody that's not wearing those same boots. And so that's what I want to do with this pair that I have now. I've got another good year on this sole, but I'm going to bring them in and have them resold because I don't like to throw stuff away. And
yeah.
there's
Oh,
there was when I had those other ones that the sole wore out, I felt like the boots had a lot of life left,
right,
and they ended up getting thrown away, and it was so unnecessary because for $90 I could have just had them resold right
right,
there in Kellogg.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind of the advantage of working with us also, is that we've been doing repair work and resole work for, like I say, 4 generations. So we're very familiar with the resoling process of boots. So and we do resole other companies' boots also. So just to
yeah,
throw that out there, it's not Hoffman or nothing. If you have an old pair of boots, a competitor's brand, whatnot, and your soles are, getting shot, and they're like you, where you're like, well, should I throw them away? Shoot them over to us, and let's see what we can do with them, because we like to help guys out. That's for sure. So
man, I'll tell you where you guys hit it out of the park too, Jim. not to get off subject here. I found it. I'm on your website here. This double insulated Hoffman Mountaineer.
yeah,
For a guy, I have never had a pair of boots that can keep my feet warm. Like, I mean, never. And when we had our property, we had this property on the Idaho side there before we moved over here to Montana, where I had this big long driveway that I'd have to get on the tractor, and it would snow and snow and snow. And I'd have to get on this tractor 2-3 times a day and keep this driveway clear. Because if you let it go too much, we were going to get stuck up there, which we did one time. We got stuck up on top of this mountain for like 5 days because I just couldn't keep up with the snow. And but anyway, the common theme with that, I went from whitetail season sitting in a deer blind to constantly plowing the driveway. My feet were constantly cold.
yeah,
And finally I bought these Mountaineers, and they, like, it surprised me. And I'm not saying that because you guys are a sponsor on the show or whatever. It surprised me. My feet do not get cold in those boots. And that is weird for me because my feet have always gotten cold. And I don't
yeah.
know what that's from.
Yeah, no, that's our warmest boot, and it's It's funny you say that because I have never owned that boot because it's just too warm for what I do around here.
Yeah.
That being said, I went on a South Dakota deer hunt a couple years ago, 2 years ago, and before I left, I looked at the weather forecast and I thought, I'm going to make a pair of these boots up before I go, just in case. And we got there and it was 7, 8 degrees below zero with like a 30-mile-an-hour wind. And you're sitting up
Jeez.
on these bluffs. And the only thing warm on my body were my feet. The rest of me,
Yeah.
it was cutting through my clothes, my hands. And so that was my first testament of those boots also in those conditions. They are awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, and that is a boot. When you say boots made to Kellogg, those are boots that we do make. We cut, we sew, we do everything right there in Idaho. So those are boots that we do make in Kellogg, Idaho. So, but yeah,
They're great. I used them all during the whitetail season this last year, sitting in the blinds, and we had a couple of good cold fronts come through. My feet, yeah, it's that's the first season that my feet didn't get like freezing to the point where I thought I was going to have to saw them off when I got home.
right, right,
And that's a big deal. So for you guys that are out there that you have that same problem where my feet just never stay warm. My wife even bought me those. Have you seen those? They're like rechargeable socks, and
right.
you could push this little button, and they're supposed to heat your feet up.
Yeah,
Still wouldn't do that. But
yeah,
I'm serious.
yeah.
These
Those are great
mountaineers,
when they work, but I've had
yeah,
them
they don't
before.
seem to work.
They don't seem to work too great.
What one time I turned them on and they got so hot my feet started sweating and then my feet got frozen because they were wet from sweating.
Yeah,
But and so yeah, and you're right, these are not the kind of boot that you just kind of walk around in all day.
yeah,
But or wear anywhere else because your feet will just sweat in them. But
yeah.
if you're sitting in a deer stand, what I would do is I would just put them in my pack and hike them up. I'd wear the Explorers up to where my deer blind was, and then once I got there, I'd change right there and I'd put
Nice.
those Mountaineers on. Man, my feet stayed nice and toasty.
Yeah.
So I got a buddy that uses them ice fishing. He loves them.
Yeah, we do a lot of tree stand hunters with those, a lot of ice fishermen,
Yeah,
snowmobilers. Just when there's not a lot of activity, they're a great boot. If you're gonna go walk 4 or 5 miles in them, you're gonna get probably pretty warm in them. But if you're
yeah,
gonna be sitting or very, maybe walk a little bit, doing a ton of glassing, walking a little bit more, doing a kind of bunch of glassing, they're great for that. And that's kind of the hunting we did in South Dakota was just glass, sit, and then walk to the next, knob sticking out and glass. And man, they were ideal for that situation. So matter of fact, all the guys I went hunting with the next year, they all ordered that
they
Mountaineer boot.
they had
Because
the
I kept
Mountaineer.
telling them, Matt, my feet are warm. They
Yeah,
froze that year. So I outfitted that whole camp with them the following year. So that was kind of funny.
heck yeah, yeah. I don't know why I haven't been invited on that deer hunt there, Jim, but we're gonna have to talk about it. I
We'll have to work on that one. Yeah.
most people I know go to South Dakota to hunt pheasant. You went out there to hunt deer, huh?
Yeah. You bet.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Whitetail.
Good for
Yeah.
you.
You
Big old
know,
whitetail.
it was just fun to be able to actually do some glassing and
Yeah.
looking around some of the North Idaho stuff where you wear your binoculars like a piece of jewelry and never use it. You just hang it from so
I
it's nice
know.
to use those things. So it's fun.
I know I've got some really nice binos and I still don't even know what they can do in terms of like how well they'll perform because
Yeah,
I just 100 yards, wow, that's pretty good.
that's
uh
pretty good for here.
no,
Yeah.
it's funny. I got my daughters, my daughters have the Explorers too, and my youngest, she was so funny when we put them on. We went turkey hunting in them, and she's like, Dad, I feel like I'm in 4-wheel drive when I'm wearing these. So they think they're pretty cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, could you tell if you were sitting in a, and I don't want to make this whole episode just a big Hoffman Boots ad, but
Yeah.
if you were sitting in like an elevator or something, what do they call that? An elevator pitch. What do you tell people about, with all these options out there for different types of hunting boots? And because I know what I say about the Hoffmans, but I'm curious what you would say as like the owner. And somebody's like, okay, well, I'm looking for boots. Why would I pick Hoffman boots? Why would I pick like the Explorer over something else?
Well, the hardest thing with boots is people like to try them on, and that's understandable. You want to be able to get things on your feet. And that's why I love going like to the Salt Lake show where you're just at the Western Hunter. And I mentioned that to you before that, when I'm there, I encourage everybody that comes and tries our boots on in that booth to try everything on. You've got all the, the Kinetrex, the Crispies, the Zamberlins, everybody's there and they all have great boots. It's not that they don't have great boots. I just think our boot fits a little better. And that's why I encourage everybody to try everything on while they're there. And I'll be honest, we had a great show down there. I don't get everybody back from that, but I do get about 75% of the guys back that come and buy our boots. Mm-hmm. And there's just certain features on that boot. Again, that toe box is real key. The rocker system in that boot, when you're taking that step from striking the heel to going forward, and you probably notice in those, it feels like someone's almost pushing you from behind.
It does.
That transition is so important because that's what keeps your heel seated in the boot. When you feel that boot break forward, that's lifting the back of your heel up of the boot. That's what's riding up with your heel. If you don't have that, people get what's called heel bite or blisters in the back of the heel. Mm-hmm. That's because your foot's flexing and your boot's not. It's not riding up with you. So it's really important. And I think we've nailed that. To me, that's the best part of that boot is the way that boot transitions. So, it's a tough question, but I would just, God, just give us a try and you'll see why guys like our boots. So.
See, I didn't even know that about the Hoffman booth with what you were just explaining. I've always wondered why I don't get blisters.
Yeah.
And you're talking to, it's not like I'm doing 20 miles a day, but I am doing anywhere from 3 to 10 miles. And these are like North Idaho, Northwest Montana kind of miles. They're not easy miles. When I say that, I don't mean it's any steeper or whatever than anywhere else. It's just brushy. So 3 miles takes a lot longer in North Idaho than 3 miles in on the plains in Wyoming or, even where I used to hunt in Utah, where it'd be a lot more open, Mm-hmm. So when I say that 3 miles, to 10 miles or so, I don't get blisters. And I had always gotten blisters before that. Yeah. I like the fact that there's like this, you could get a pair right out of the box and go hunting in them. There's no like major break-in period. What is that? How do you get that? Because I've heard some naysayers, like I've seen it online. People get, real nasty about gear questions and whatnot. And they're like, oh, anybody that says that there's no break-in period on a boot is full of shit. Yeah. I've heard a lot of that. Right. And I'm like, man, the only thing I can think of is you've never tried a Hoffman boot. I literally, that time you and I went elk hunting, you brought that pair of boots for me. And I put them on right there at the truck and we went, we didn't go super far, but it was a good 3 or 4 miles. Again, right. North Idaho miles.
Right.
And anyway, how does that, how do you guys achieve that?
Well, you get blisters from a boot when your foot's moving inside the boot. If that makes sense.
Yeah, the friction.
If your boot's secure, and again, that's where that rocker system comes into play. If your boot is riding up with your heel and you're not sliding around in there, that's how we prevent blisters. Would I recommend putting on a boot and going first time, 10 miles back in there? No. Have I done it? Yeah. The first sample boot that I received, this is a true story. The first sample boot of our Explorer, when finished, the same pair I still have now, back in 2012, the first pair I received showed up on October 9th. Opening day was October 10th.
Yeah, October 10th.
I figured, what the heck? I was going to try them. I was bound and determined just to try them to see how I liked them. I brought extra boots along at my camp, and literally I went that whole day and honestly didn't know I had a pair of boots on even, a new pair. It was just like my old boots, it's broke in. They felt great. And that's true. That's truthfully the point that I knew we had something there because we don't hunt that easy where we hunt. It's pretty steep, pretty mountainous. And of course I was, 12 years younger then. So I went a little bit harder, but that was the first time when I had that first pair of boots on thinking, geez, this boot is awesome, and so, It's just getting that boot to fit right, to flex right, and all the little things that go along with that are important.
There's a lot of great trail cameras out there. I've run the Tacticams, and that's a great system, especially their cell cameras. I've run a lot of different brands that I've recommended to you guys in the past, but the right fit at the right time is the Spypoint trail cameras. I have a couple of the Flex G36s that are cell cams. They do a really good job for keeping track of everything that's going on my property. And I also have for, kind of out in the backcountry, I've got these Force Pros. Man, the picture quality on those Force Pros is just amazing. If you guys saw some of the bear pictures I was showing you during Spring Bear, that was a Force Pro. Really great cameras. I'm really excited that they chose to sponsor the show, because I've been using Spypoint for a long time, and I think you guys are going to be just as happy as I am with them. And check them out at spypoint.com and let them know the Western Huntsman sent you. Some of you might be old enough to remember back in the day when you can go to Walmart and get you a Savage rifle for very cheap. And they did a good job, but they weren't equipped for some of the hardcore hunting out there that we do today. If that's a memory that you have with Savage, like I do, I'm telling you, it's not like that anymore. Savage Arms is one of the premier firearms manufacturers dedicated to us hunters. I have this freaking Savage 110. It's the Apex Hunter, and this thing is amazing. I love the AccuTrigger. You can also get them with the AccuFit, which allows you to adjust the stock. So if you're buying them for youth hunters or whatever, or just, rifles fit you different. It's so flexible. It's so perfect for every hunter. It's just not the same Savage that it was 30, 40 years ago. It's a great firearm for everyday use while hunting, and they support hunters and they support this show, and I really appreciate Savage Arms. Check them out anywhere firearms are sold, or go to savagearms.com to find out more. Hey, I got a question for you. I got a couple questions that you kind of piqued my interest. But remember that spot we went hunting, and you and we walked up that drainage. I think we got a couple of bugles, right?
Right, up above us.
Did you ever go back there and rifle hunt that?
No, I probably couldn't find it.
No. Oh man, I'll have to show you that spot. I'll send you a pin or something. I've always wanted to rifle hunt that spot, because that's one of those rare areas in North Idaho where you could sit and watch a couple of different open faces, and the deer run, or not the deer, the elk. I was sitting up on that one spot, and I was actually bear hunting, and the elk kept crisscrossing across, and elk season had just ended. That extended 5 days that the A-taggers get in October, that had just ended. So I went up there looking for bears, and there was elk crisscrossing that one open face all day long. There'd be a group of 6 of them there, 4 of them there, 2 come out over there, a couple of bulls. Anyway, I always wondered.
One, that's your hunting spot. I wouldn't go back in there without you telling me.
It's only my archery hunting spot. It's only my archery hunting. I would, yeah.
Well, still, sacred hunting grounds are pretty sacred, so when you take somebody to a hunting ground, I don't go back, and usually unless I go with that person. So yeah, no, I've never been back.
I would not be upset if you went in there during rifle season and hunted. In fact, I wouldn't even be upset if you went in there during archery season, because I found some other spots that are. The problem with that spot, Jim, is I always get bugles in there, and I was drawn back on a bull in there up higher at one point, and the dang thing saw me as he came out of the trees, and he was a good bull. He was a really good bull. And I made the mistake of being in the sunlight instead of in the shade, and I stood out like a sore thumb, and I was all camoed out. It just didn't matter. He just spotted me right off the bat and turned around and disappeared out of my life forever. But I always get bugles in there, but setting up in there is really tough because of the way that all those ridge lines change and the different drainages that are feeding into the main drainage. It's tough to archery hunt in there.
Maybe a little bit.
But it'd be a great rifle spot. I'd be curious to know if it gets super crowded in there during rifle, because I'm never in there. But the other question is when we went hunting, we go up, we hiked all the way to the top, and I broke out my little jet boil,
Yeah.
and had I don't know, like a peak refuel or something. And you pull out this peanut butter and jam sandwich, and I feel like you were kind of jealous of my
I have one
setup
now.
there.
I
Do
do
you
have
have one?
one now.
Okay, you have upgraded. I'm
My
just
wife
making
bought
sure.
me one for Christmas that
Oh,
fall.
good for
Oh,
her.
I was telling her about it. So yeah, nothing like a good hot meal on those cold days. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
makes a big difference. I've always
Yeah.
wondered if you were still sporting the peanut butter sandwiches on big long cold hikes like that. Oh,
No, no, I was a little jealous. I'm not going to lie. You were sitting there having a nice big meal, and I was eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I was like, what the hell?
oh man, you could tell. You just look at me, man. I don't miss a meal, and so
Yeah.
I have a couple questions regarding this process. You kind of you were in this boot manufacturing business, right? And you're kind of going along. You guys are making these logging and these lineman boots and some winter packs and all this stuff, and then you take over the company and you make this decision. Let's start dipping our toes into the hunting space and kind of transition, create this other what did you call it? Another aspect of the company where we're kind of going into the hunting community and the hunting industry, if you will. What's like the difference between selling into the hunting industry and being like a boot manufacturer for the hunting space and marketing to the hunting community versus logging and winter packs and lineman boots, stuff like that? Is there like a big difference on that side of it?
No, there really isn't. The one thing that being into the hunting and lineman industry kind of teaches you is that there's no substitute for quality. Those guys beat their boots up more than, I mean, you get a guy out there, a logger, and a lot of them might know, logging boots with corks on them, metal spikes on the bottom of them. They're running up and down steep terrain all day long, and secondhand quality just doesn't cut it. So we were really versed in quality, and I think that's just what kind of in your bloodlines, I guess, because that's all we've known since I've been a little kid. Is making sure things last. And so when we got in the hunting industry, it was the same type of thing: is what quality products can we put in these? We're not going to cut corners. We're not going to go and get a waterproof booty made in China. We're not going to not use Vibram, because Vibram still, in my opinion, is the best compounds out there. So it was not trying to cut corners. I truthfully didn't care what the boot costs to make. It was like, this is what we want in the boot, and then we'll address the cost after it. And that might be a little backwards thinking, but to me, you've been out in late October, November, when it's crappy out, and the last thing you want to worry about is your feet, your hands,
Yeah.
your feet, your core of your body. So to me, it's not worth trying to cut corners. So when you relate these to the different industries, we brought this hunting line in and kind of nurtured it along and kind of got it to where we want it to be. But now what we're doing is, a lot of these hunting boot uppers, the mountaineering style boots, are so popular, they're transitioning actually right into the logging and lime industry. We're using the same upper patterns, different sole configurations. For the lineman, we have a little stiffer sole. We have an extra shank in there, a little taller heel, but the upper's identical to the Explorer boot.
Mm.
So it's just a different sole configuration for linemen. Logging boot, the same thing. We came out with the Explorer boot. We call it the Armor Pro boot. Has that extra rubber coating on the leather, because those guys are in that real thick brush all day, just beating the heck out of their boots. So we wanted something that would last even longer. So we have the Armor Pro boot that we put corks on, same upper as my hunting boot, but just with a little bit added features to it for logging. So that same family of boots now, that the Explorer line, is in my logging industry. It's in my lineman boots. So, yeah, it kind of does relate together. And, the common core is quality. You've got to have the products that will withstand the kind of abuse these guys are going to give it. So that's kind of what we did with our hunting boots too.
I'm curious to know, like, you said you like to read a lot of blogs and forums and read all the comments and stuff like that. Is like within the logging community, for example, is there as much vitriol among them over like products, like what kind of boot they're using, as there is in the hunting space? Like, Have you seen this? You'll see a post on Facebook, for example, and somebody disagrees about what their favorite boot is, and it's like it feels like if they were in a bar, one of them would be going home with a black eye. They're so mad
Yeah.
about it. You know, does that happen in the other spaces you work in?
Not really. I mean, hunting, you definitely see it way more in hunting. And I think the reason being is there are basically so many good choices out there right now. You've got some great choices to look at for footwear where you get into lineman boots and logging boots. Logging boots, if you Google logging boots, you're going to pull up a bunch of our boots. We don't have a lot of competition in there. We've kind of a
Dominated.
combination of things. We've kind of dominate that industry, and the industry is shrunk. And so some of the big guys aren't around as much as they were. They kind of still do the same thing they did years ago, and those boots just aren't popular anymore. So we've kind of changed the whole footwear realm, I guess you'd say, in the logging, and a lot in the lineman industry also, where those big 16-inch lineman boots where they weigh 10 pounds a pair, guys aren't wearing those anymore. The not younger generation, they want lighter and waterproof and the equipment, the pads they use with the lineman boots, they're so much better anymore. They don't have to have that type of boot. So
Yeah.
there's not many choices. When you get in the hunting industry, there's a lot of choices. And there's a lot of guys that, hey, I've tried this boot. It's been great for me. It's got to be great for everybody else, and that's the mentality I think of it, is that, hey, it works for me. So this is the best boot out there. Well, yeah, that's good. It works for you, but there's other choices that are probably just as good, if not better. You just haven't experienced them yet. So,
Yeah.
so you get a guy that's really faithful to a brand, which is nothing wrong with that. But I think that's where people feel like they get their toes stepped on when they say, hey, those boots aren't as good as these. Well, yes, they are, so you kind of get that a
Yeah.
little more. You get a little more of that because there's so many good choices out there.
So and then kind of, well, it's not staying on that line, but it's can you talk to us a little bit about your, hold on, let me go back up on the website here because I'm so forgetful. So your women's boots, I want to talk about that because one of my frustrations is, I have my two daughters. They're now 13 and 15. I can't believe she's 15. It drives me crazy. She just had her birthday this last weekend. Really stressful. But anyway,
Jim, you want to know
they,
stressful? I'm gonna be a grandpa in my first time here in about 5 months.
are you
That
really?
really, that really feels like I'm aging, man.
Oh
So
man, Grandpa Jim. That's
that's
what I'm gonna have to
right.
call you
So
from now on. Well,
you know,
hey, congratulations on that.
yeah, thank
That
you.
that's pretty cool. I'm excited for you, but I know what you mean. So so my girls, they both have a pair of Hoffmans. My wife has a pair of Hoffmans. They're all Explorers. Uh, one of my frustrations has been within the hunting space, hunting community, has been the lack of options to try to find my girls some stuff, because my girls love hunting. I mean they are more into hunting than I was at their age, and that's saying something.
Yeah,
And interestingly, there's you have a lot of like different, like one of my girls, uh she doesn't care about makeup. She's kind of more kind of the tomboyish kind of thing. Not she don't care about that. My other daughter, she's way into being very girly on one end, and being wearing what, mascara or whatever. Her and my wife argue about what she's allowed to wear, you know.
yeah, yeah,
So, uh, but they're, when it comes to hunting season, they are stone cold hunters, and I need them to be, they're old enough that they can hang with me. This isn't like 5 6 years ago when I could just take them out on like a half-ass hunt, and then they're cold and hungry and ready to get back to the truck. No, they're out there with me. I have a really difficult time finding them a good pack that fits them because they're small. uh I have a hard time finding them camo. I'm still struggling with the camo thing, women's camo. I have a hard time finding certain pieces of gear that work for them, and it's because I know that there's a lot of women hunters out there nowadays, compared to years ago, but still comparatively, they're a small segment of the market. And so a lot of these companies can't justify making this stuff. And
Right.
so it's been hard. That hasn't been the case with the boots. I don't even know if they're women's or if they're like youth. I think they're women's.
They were women's. Yeah. Yeah. They go down to a size, we go down to a size 5 in our ladies' boots. And
Yes. And
yeah.
they both wear a 6, and they've got that size 6. In fact, my wife wears a 6 now too. So anyway,
And
talk to us about that.
yeah, it's a tough area. I mean, is it an area you're going to make ever a lot of money in, or be really popular in that area, or sell a lot of boots? No. But are there women out there like your daughters that really get into it and you want them to be able to service? Heck yeah. We don't want to make this just a men's club. So we start off with our first Explorer boot in ladies, and the nice thing about that boot, it's not a dummied down boot at all. It's the same leathers, the same soles, the same mitts, same waterproof booties. A lot of times you'll see the ladies' boots come out, and you're looking at the men's and looking at the ladies, going, "Well, geez, this is great, but it's not nowhere near the quality."
Yeah. That's how the camo has been for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one thing I just did not want to do. I wanted to make sure our ladies' boots were getting just as good a boot as our guys were. And so we brought out the women's Explorer. We brought out an insulated women's Explorer. And then we actually, in our gals that are out in the field, say for forestry work or logging work, our Armor Pro boot's really popular. So that was asked for. So we did bring out a woman's version of the Armor Pro also. And then another just little 6-inch little hiker boot that my wife uses. It's a nice little boot called our Rebel boot. Again, just a nice little kick around boot, but it's a really good quality boot. So we brought out 4 pieces for ladies so far in our line there. And yeah, they've been good. I mean, like I say, we're not going to sell thousands of pairs, but boy, it's sure nice when a gal calls me up and say, "What do you have for me?" I can say, "Well, we have some options."
Yeah.
So,
and I don't understand why you wouldn't sell thousands of them, because it's not like there's a rule that when you buy a Hoffman Explorer that it has to be just for hunting. Like, my wife doesn't hunt at all. But she does. We go out, we go like long game huckleberry picking, man. We'll go a few miles back finding the good berries. Same thing for morel mushroom hunting, or just hiking, just general hiking. It's a great boot for all of that kind of stuff. And we live on a homestead, so I'll see her out there wearing these Hoffmans while she's out there, doing something, fixing the chicken coop or whatever. It's a great boot for all that kind of stuff. And so, like, the Explorer could be, I don't know, in my opinion, almost like a daily wear, because it's that comfortable. I don't, because I don't want to wear it out anymore or faster. And I also sit around a lot of campfires. You're the one that taught me this little thing about, can you tell people why you shouldn't sit around a campfire in your hunting boots and dry them out around the fire? Cause I used to be so guilty of that.
Yeah. Well, a couple things. A lot of these hunting boots now are, and not just the Hoffman brand, but a lot of them, when you get the lighter weight boots, they're lighter weight because there's an EVA midsole or some sort of a EVA type material in that. If that gets hot, it'll actually contrast. And a lot of guys say, "Hey, I feel like my hunting boots are shrinking." Well, that can be a reason for one thing. The other thing is, all of these boots now have rubber rands on them, the rubber strip that goes around above the sole that goes around the boot that helps protect the upper. Those are all put on with heat glues. In other words, it's a hot, I guess you just call it a glue. There's another word I was trying to find, but when it's put on warm, and they put onto those leathers, and then that basically dries up and it stays really firm onto that. Unless it hits about 135, 140 degrees, those glues reactivate. So if you're sitting there at the end of the day and you're kicking your feet up, having a beer or whatever around a fire, and you're putting your feet next to that fire and those rands get hot, there's a good chance they'll separate. So that's kind of the only thing about those boots that you've got to really be careful on is heat. And it's like I say, it's not just a Hoffman boot. It's any boot that has
any
a
boot.
rand.
Yeah.
They're all put on the same way. So one thing I always hate to see a guy sitting around a fire or kicking their feet up right next to a fire, because you're asking for issues for sure. So, and you'll see it a lot of times, the boot will actually curl up a little bit. The toe will lift up in it.
Yeah.
That's that contrasting. and pulling back, and it actually will lift the toe of that boot up. So we'll get a few pair every year. A guy will send them in and say, I don't know what's happening to these. I said, would you get them hot? Well, I didn't think I did. Well, yeah, you did, because it's a pretty telltale sign when they get too hot, so it doesn't happen often, but it's just something to be aware of for sure.
So what about I'm just trying to I'm thinking of like other boot care kind of things. What about when I'm so a lot of hunters are like this too, where like I'll wear flip-flops or something while I'm driving up to the trailhead or wherever I'm going to hunt, and I don't put my socks or boots on until I get there, and especially if it's cold outside. But I'll have my boots down at the floorboard on the passenger side of my truck or something, and the heater's blowing down. Is that bad, or is that you're trying to prevent like 130 degrees? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's typically about the reactivation point of those glues. So typically that car heater, unless it's sitting right up on it, then I would say no. I have seen boots that, we sell a lot of our, not the Explorer boot, but that what I was telling you about to lineman, that Explorer boot that's made to a lineman. We sell a lot of those down into California. And I have seen where people have left them in their car and it's actually got hot enough inside of a car in the middle of summer down there. Well, you figure it's 110 degrees down there and they leave them in the car all day. I've actually seen it get hot enough where it delaminated a sole before.
Oh, wow.
So it's just stuff to be aware of, things, thankfully we don't have to worry about that around here.
But I mean, they can get pretty hot in the back of your like the back seat of my truck. If it's early September, season opens usually August 30th or whatever. I mean, it's still technically summer. So what about if you put them in the back seat and maybe I cover them with one of my base layers or something that, or a coat or something. So it's not getting like direct sunlight, but that heat is kind of staying out. Is that okay?
Yeah, you should be fine then. Yeah. Those are pretty extreme cases I'm referring to. I don't see a lot of that, but I just know it has happened. And, your car can get 150, 160 degrees on a 120 day, 120-degree day, just things.
Is there anything else that people should know about when it comes to like boot care that to kind of help get a little bit more life out of them? I don't know if like drying them too fast is a problem. Like sometimes I'll get my boots soaked or whatever, and you put them by the heater vent or something to kind of help speed them up. Or I don't know if there's something like that people should know about that break them down faster.
I'm a big fan of boot dryers. They seem to work really well. If you need to dry a boot, the biggest thing is just keeping a little bit of conditioning on them too. That's really important. I typically, the way I usually do my boots is usually twice a year is when I'm putting it on. Now, keep in mind, unfortunately I'm working a lot more than I'd like to be, but
dang it.
So yeah, so I always do them after hunting season. I always put them on before I put them away. Anymore, I'm in them a lot more. We have some property I've been doing some work on, so I'm in my Explorers darn near every weekend. So I do grease them up a little bit more. I just did that before the Western Hunter show down there we were at because they were looking a little sad. So I put a little grease on them there. But I always tell people, put your hands up, feel your leather. When you start running your hands over that leather and it starts feeling a little bit rough, you'll feel it. It feels a little bit rough. That's telling you that it needs oil. When you first get these, they're pre-treated leather, so they're nice, smooth feeling. But when you start getting that roughness to leather, when you can actually feel it with your hands, that's telling you they're thirsty for some oil, So it's something you can always just kind of gauge with the touch too.
Okay. Does leaving, how when, like, especially this time of year, if you go out into, well, I'll just fess up. If you go in my front yard, it used to be lawn. We bought this place 6-7 months ago, and I'm turning the lawn into a parking area because there was no like turnaround area out there. So instead of having the lawn where it's at, needless to say, it thawed out a lot quicker than I thought. I started plowing over there when the ground was frozen and my tractor wouldn't sink or anything. Now it looks like I could have like mud bog races in my front yard.
Yeah.
It's terrible. If I walk through that in my Hoffman boots, in my Explorers, and then I brought the boots in the house or whatever, and just left all that mud caked on there, and just set them in the closet. Is that bad for boots? I've always wondered that. Is that bad for boots, or
Yeah.
do I need to get that mud off?
Yeah. No, mud will definitely absorb, dirt will absorb. And so it will absorb out of the oils out of your leather. Now, do you have to do it every time? I'm guilty as that as heck. I'll wear my boots out working and come in, take them off, leave them till the next day. But if you're going to leave them for a long period of time, I would definitely clean them off first. Definitely
Yeah,
clean them off. Maybe some oil on them wouldn't hurt them. But yeah, those muds they do dry leather for sure because they
yeah.
will absorb. They absorb moisture and
There's
they're
probably
going to absorb oils.
there's probably people listening to this that are like, "Man, what a dumb question, Jim. Of course, it's going to ruin the." But I don't
Yeah.
know. I've just not stuff I've thought about that much, other than when I put them away muddy.
Yeah, and guys are guys. I mean, the last thing
Yeah,
you want to do when you come home from work is I'm gonna go clean my boots off. That I know that doesn't happen because I don't do it all the time, but
I
I
don't.
do before I put them away for my hunt season stuff. I do make sure they are cleaned and they are oiled, and so
Hmm.
that really does help. So
Good. Well, why don't you give us a rundown of what's new on the docket on the table here, and we can kind of leave everybody with that. And I'd love to just personally talk about Hoffman for a sec with that, because it's just been I mean, these boots for me, man, they've been a game changer. And
yeah,
I don't say that lightly. Like it has been a game changer. If you stopped sponsoring my podcast, I would not have another boot allowed to be sponsoring this show, because I wouldn't switch, if that makes sense. And
yeah.
I mean that. And so, yeah, what's on the horizon? What's coming down the pike in terms of new type of boots, and what people should know?
Yeah. So, we have the bread and butter of everything we do has been that Explorer series. So we've kind of built off of that a little bit. One thing we are seeing is more and more guys that are wearing their Explorers, liking the boot enough where they want to wear it to work. And like you're saying, those are my hunting boots. I put them away. Um, when you get to different sole types, you get to those hunting soles. They're great soles on those boots, but they're not made for asphalt wear. They will wear faster on asphalts because the compositions are a little bit softer. And that's where your grip comes from. The softer the composition, the more grip you're going to get out of a sole. You get a harder sole, less grip.
Yeah.
So we do have a new line coming out here. I believe it's next month. That'll be taking that Explorer upper, but more of a work sole on it. We'll be doing it in a composite toe and a plain toe. So for the guy that really wants a hunting boot per se that they can work in, also that, yeah, maybe I go hunting a couple weeks of the year, but I can't justify buying a hunting boot just for that. I want to be able to use them for work too. This will be a great crossover boot. It's something we've been asked for quite a bit. Um, the boot will have a little bit more flex than our Explorer. I'm for a work boot, I wanted something a little more flexible. So we are tapering that midsole that gives the boot the stiffness down a little bit, so it'll have a little more flex to it. So that boot we call our mid flex boot. That'll be coming out here shortly. We have our new Grizzly boot out. Go ahead. Did you have a question?
No, I was gonna comment. I might need I might need a pair of those.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
I just bought a t-shirt off your website.
Oh,
So
okay.
I
No.
realized I don't have any Hoffman boot swag, man.
Oh, gosh, I'll have to get you some. But no, that mid flex boot is going to be a great boot. And for the guys that need a safety toe boot for work, man, it's going to be a really nice boot. I'm really excited for that work aspect of it also. And then we have our new Grizzly boot out. You probably have seen that. It's been popping
Yep.
up on our site in a few places. Been received a lot better than I expected. Matter of fact, we're very close to being sold out of that already, unfortunately, but new supplies coming in July. That boot it's caught fire. It has a carbon finish on the outside of the leather. They call it a carbon plating. Just a very unique boot, but we're using that to a lot of guys, just outdoor guys, be it a forester or a hunter or even in the lineman industry. We're getting guys buying that. It's been a boot that's been actually going to all aspects of our business, from hunting to lineman to logging. So very
Yeah.
unique boot, very cool boot. But so check that boot out. It's on our website. It's called the Grizzly. And then another new boot coming out next month will be our Kodiak boot, and that's kind of had a few teasers out there. We brought out about 150 pair of these about a year ago, and I always like to bring out a small group like that and give them about a year just to see what kind of feedback, make sure there's no issues with the boot and things like that. So it's a good trial period, and it's a good amount of boots to get out there to try. So feedback was phenomenal on that boot. It kind of has again, that Armor Pro flavoring with a little bit of that rubber coating on the bottom. Yet instead of a all leather upper, it has a cut resistant type fabric built into the top of the boot for venting purposes. So it will be a little bit lighter weight. It'll breathe better. For an 8-inch boot, it comes in at 4 pounds a pair. Very lightweight. Kind of excited for that one. So
Cool.
it's just
I could tell.
Cool looking boot.
I could tell you're excited about that when your eyes kind of lit up when you started talking about that. That's a Kodiak, right?
Food feedback on that's been super good. So it's just a different looking boot, man. It's just you see it and you just go, wow, that is cool looking. So,
okay.
Yeah, so
I'm interested in that one. I'll buy one. I'll buy a set of those, man.
We'll try that. Yeah, we'll get you a pair.
Yeah.
But, so those are the three main boots coming out in that hunting area. We do have a couple other boots in the works, based off the Explorer line, but a little bit different upper pattern and something with a little more flex to it. You know, a lot of guys, I love the stiffness of the Explorer. To me, it's just right. It's not
me too
stiff like a board, but it definitely has more guts than some of the other brands. So it's kind of that sweet spot, I would call it. And to me, I love that. Now, some guys, you know, if you're a bird hunter or a flatland hunter, it might be a little bit too stiff. So we are coming out with a little bit lighter weight, a little bit more flex style boot coming out probably by this fall. I'm pushing right now to get it out by fall, but again, that's kind of in the pipe. So you do think
that's fantastic. One question for you. You've got on the website here, it says Hoffman's Women's Rebel Boots. Is the Explorer still available for women's or in women's?
Yes, we have.
Okay, so there's two different options there.
Yeah, so there should be a non-insulated and an insulated Explorer in the women's.
Okay. I haven't even delved into that. I'm just looking kind of down on the hunting lineup. I feel like my wife would really dig those Rebel boots. In fact, just because they're pretty, they're prettier. Sure. You know, so
it's the one boot we have that kind of has a little pinkish tones to it. Just a lot of girls like pink. Some I found out don't like pink because they're hunting.
Yeah, no, it's true.
It's just kind of a cool boot. Yeah. So
it's funny you say that. One of my daughters would really like the pink boot. The other one would like scoff at that. You know, but will be no pink boot on my foot. You know, so I love it.
Yeah.
Did I cut you off there? I'm sorry.
Nope.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to throw in there, you know, when you're talking about like the ankle support and the stiffness of it, these for those of you listening, if you're in the market for an Explorer, the thing that you're going to find is they're very strong on the mountain, and it makes you stronger on the mountain with that support. I swear I would have broke my ankle if I was wearing something else a few times going through where I guess the Explorers really shine for me. The non-insulated for me, the 8-inch, I love the 8-inch, in September are you cannot beat that boot for this hunting season. If you're walking through a lot of blowdown, that's where these boots shine. If you're going through a lot, you know, you're walking through a lot of the drainages where it's real mucky or marshy in the bottom of the drainage and you have to cross that thing several times, that's where this boot really shines. Coming downhill, that's where this boot really shines. All other boots like hurt the front part of my foot when I'm going downhill, and you get a lot of ankle fatigue. This boot, it just really shines in those kind of circumstances. And then just hiking in general, just the longevity, I feel like there's a lot less fatigue. And I think that you answered the question as to why that is, as how it helps roll your foot. I don't know. You can't beat it in my mind. And you're not paying $500, $600 for a super high end boot. You're getting the same quality for a lot less. And what's my promo code again? Is it Huntsman 10?
Huntsman 10, I believe it is.
Huntsman 10. Yeah. You guys will get that. I forgot to use that. I just bought a t-shirt off your website. I should have
We should
Dang
make
it.
sure we verify that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Huntsman 10. But
I used it when I bought those Mountaineers. I'm pretty sure it works. The Huntsman 10 is the promo code that gets you guys 10% off. And again, I feel like one of those, one of the great secrets of the hunting gear out there is Hoffman boots. There's those that have tried it and they don't ever go back, and that's usually how people end up once they've had a pair. So and again, guys, coming from somebody who's not a big gear junkie, there's three things that you really need to focus on when you're in the field. You've got to have good boots. It's like not even there's no excuse to have a crappy set of boots if you're a serious hunter. A good pack, and obviously, my third one is always your weapon. Whether your rifle, archery, doesn't matter. Good quality gear in those three areas will keep you in the field longer. It'll make you more lethal. It'll make you more effective, and it'll make your overall experience just a lot better. And so for some of you naysayers out there, and I have friends that are like this. They're like, I'm not spending that kind of money on boots or whatever. Like I'm looking up here, the Hoffman Explorers, they start at like 370, 385 for the Explorer Light. Yeah, that's in comparison to some of these other high end boots. That's a great price. Plus, you can use the promo code there and get you 10% off. So, what was I saying? Oh, the buddies that they're not spending that kind of money. Well, okay, go buy your $100 boots and enjoy your blisters and enjoy slipping down the mountain and enjoy all the other things that just make it uncomfortable. It's ridiculous. So, well, Jim, you got something to add to that, brother?
no, I just agree with you 100%. I'm always been and before even we did this, with getting into this hunting line ourselves, I've tried on, gosh, I've tried many different types of boots, and there's some good choices out there. But I'm not going to name names just because I don't want to do that. But a lesser brand compared to some of the big boys out there, but one that everybody's probably had sometime in their lifetime. But I used to think that was the cat's meow until I got this type of boot on. It's just the support. As you get older, the less fatigue in your legs, your calves, your hamstrings, your ankles, just these high end boots are just like I say, not just the Hoffman brand. There's a lot of great brands out there, but these higher end boots, there is something to be said about them. And I've really noticed it in the last, say, 10 to 15 years as I've got up to my latter 50s. I just noticed the difference in my legs for sure. And if we'd love to have your business out there and at least give us a try. I mean, I don't think you'll be sorry one bit, but like I said, there's a lot of good choices out there too. So that's good for the hunters too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love companies like yours. It's like this true American story. Your dad and his brother grew this company into what it is now. I always say in the ad for Hoffman, it's the family of shoemakers, that date back a couple generations. And it's just, that is a dying thing in America. And I like seeing the company story and having that traditional way of doing business where you guys are, quality is the concern, not the profit, where corporate America, they'd cut a piece of that leather out to save them a half a percentage point on a stock option or something. It's just really cool, man. And
I think that's what really does make us unique. If you, listeners out there, you have questions, call me, and you're not going to get some person doesn't know about the boots. I'm always available, or our gals that are there, they're very well trained on what we do and how the boots perform. And, we eat, breathe this stuff. So, and I'm always available. I might not be able to take your call that instance, but I call you back. I answer emails, any of the contact us Hoffman boot emails, they come to me. I want to see what people have to say. So, to me, it's really important to be a small company out there that, obviously we've grown a lot, but I don't want to lose that small company feel. And
that's important.
It's really important. I appreciate that when I'm going out to buy something. So I want people to appreciate that from us. So
I do too. And that's why is it just me, or is it just getting more and more commonplace that when you just have a simple question about something you bought or trying to put together or thinking about ordering, you call. I don't want to talk to a screen where, hey, it's a chat box thing and you don't even know who's on the other end. They never have the answer. I just want to call and get an answer. And it's like, you get this rundown of, well, if you speak English, press this. If you want customer service, press this. If your grandma's still alive, press this button. If you have gray hair, press this button. It's like, nah, man, just give me somebody to answer the phone. I
need 3 minutes. That's all I need.
I just need 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to talk to you either. I just need a question answered, And so, no, that's great stuff, man. We're losing that in society. So I'm glad you're still out there doing that. And Jim, obviously from my end, I really appreciate the support you've had for the show. You gave us a shot before this show had hardly any reach at all. You gave us a chance when hardly anybody knew about the Western Huntsman podcast, and so it was important because it's really difficult to do this kind of stuff without the support of companies like Hoffman Boots, and so I really appreciate that. Makes the world go around for us.
Well, I love your podcast. I mean, you're just so authentic, and that's the best word I could use. It's just
oh, thanks, man.
You just you say it how it is and how you feel, and that's what it is. You're not it's just refreshing to hear.
I'm sure that there's a lot of people they'll listen to my show and they'll cringe a little bit with the stuff that comes out of my mouth.
That's the way it is.
It's just a part of it, man.
Well, I remember our first podcast together a few years ago. I went in there and first thing you did was pull out the crown. And I was like, all right, this is my kind of guy.
That's right. We do that sometimes. And so you went in the OG, the original old Broken Time studio. Once this studio's done, you'll have to come up and see me in this one. It's going to be a cool one. It's under construction right now, as you can see kind of behind me, but it's going to be a cool one.
I'll wait for the invite, man.
All right. And let's go hit the mountain again this September if you want to. I've actually got a better spot to show you.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, good deal, Jim. I appreciate you joining me on the show. Stick on the line for just a sec, but I appreciate you having me on. So and for it, or other way around, you coming on my show. I'm getting
tongue-tied. You having me on, so
maybe you're making me nervous, Jim.
There you go,
I'm blushing or something. No, but I appreciate it. Appreciate the support on the show, and for all of you listening. HoffmanBoots.com. It is in the show notes on every episode we put out on this. You guys hear me talk about it all the time. Use promo code Huntsman10. That'll save you 10%. There's a whole lineup of boots, great products, great company, great story. It's the kind of company that you'd feel like comfortable and proud to do business with. So check them out at HoffmanBoots.com. Jim, thanks again for joining me. We're going to have to do this again.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
You made it. That's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you're following us on Instagram at The Western Huntsman and write us a good review at Apple Podcasts. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.